Thanks, Gerlach, and good morning, everybody. Just a number of questions, and I don't want to be kind of repetitive in relation to some of the questions that have been already said. So my first question is, obviously this procedure was paused in 2018 in the state. Is the procedure still available outside the state? For example, is this procedure still available in Europe for women to get done?
The implantation, to the best of my knowledge, yes, there's not the bans in Europe. There are pauses, but to the best of my information, yes, they're still taking place.
Okay.
But the UK
In relation to the treatment abroad scheme, how many women have accessed this scheme in the state thus far?
None, to my knowledge.
None.
I did it last year. I tried to access it.
Right.
So
And
none have actually.
Amanda, were you successful?
No, I was unsuccessful, and I went to the Ombudsman, and the Ombudsman posed questions to the HSE, and when I spoke to the caseworker, she said some were unanswered.
Right. And why do you think you weren't successful in accessing the scheme abroad?
The answers didn't make any sense. I was told I hadn't accessed the patient pathways, and I had been to 2 mesh clinics. I had been in touch with the patient pathways, and I had been continuously with one urologist for 3 years prior to going, being seen very frequently. So
Okay.
it didn't make any sense, actually, their refusal.
Okay.
And that I had self-referred.
Okay. And do you know how many women have tried to access the travel abroad scheme? Is there because obviously there doesn't seem to be kind of a collection of data around this particular issue.
No.
No. Can I just say, when the HSE's position is that we have these surgeries available in Ireland for a treatment abroad scheme administrator, if the official position is the women can get the surgeries here in Ireland, then how can they give us access to the public funds to treat abroad? I mean, that's a...
And Gino, could I just add as well, when the translabial scanner became available in 2019, now granted that was before the COVID, when it was initially supposed to start, it was that March the treatment abroad scheme was taken away. It had been granted by Simon Harris when he was the health minister, but then it was taken away in the March of 2019. Now, it was only in the last correspondence that I got that said the treatment abroad scheme was available for complications that can't be dealt with in this country. But in the meantime, we have a member who has actually sanctioned the treatment abroad scheme for 1 surgery in the UK, but the surgery needed it needed a reconstruction after the initial removal, and that wasn't sanctioned. So there was no point, she couldn't go ahead with it because she had only 1 end of the surgery available to her on the treatment abroad scheme. And I've heard nothing more about it, as I said, until the last correspondence with the Minister, and where he had said that the treatment abroad scheme was back available for complications that couldn't be dealt with in this country. So.
And that would be mostly in the United States where that procedure could take place.
Sorry?
Okay.
Also the US is where the procedure
Yes.
people are looking to.
No, the UK as well.
If I could just explain, the mesh pathways, we have a local MDT, and they deal with what they call non-complex complications. So the women have to go through that step, and only if that local MDT merits that they can go to the mesh complications MDT. Do the women get on the next step? And then the mesh complications MDT, they get to decide whether they can operate or not. And if they decide they can operate, then the woman is kept in the local services. So there's a non-complicated level, a complicated level, complex level, and only if the complex team say they can't do it, will they start to look elsewhere. So the women, there's a lot of steps to get through, and the women are falling at the first hurdles.
There's no patient-centred care involved with mesh injury. We have to rely on people that indirectly affected by it, but to sign forms for us to avail of the services that's suggested, you know, which is just unacceptable.
I know your injury must be compounded by being told that this is kind of psychosomatic in relation to, certain medical professionals saying that this is all in your head, that this is nothing related to the procedure that was done. How does that kind of, how does that make you feel in relation to healthcare in Ireland? That, this is, people are saying, look, this is nothing to do with the procedure you got done. This is essentially all in your head.
You're hoping that the mesh clinic is going to bring a resolution and it's your last stop, and then you're told it's not the mesh isn't your problem. We have lots of young women coming in here with infections, and not even to examine you, having waited all those years. I mean, hope deferred makes your heart really sick. I was really sick walking out.
Not to be egotistical, but if I hear now that a consultant is going, your problems is not the mesh, and not to sound in any way egotistical, I do think to myself, do you even have the credentials to have this job, this profession of trust that you are in? That's the way I look at it now, because it's not a reflection on us. As I said, we trusted in who was supposed to help us. So it's not a reflection on us that they can't fix us for what's been caused.
But with respect, having a scanner doesn't mean that you have the skills to be able to use what you find after you've used the scanner. So the scanner of itself isn't an answer. And international best opinion would say that the consultant who inserted your mesh is not always best placed to remove it, but may feel duty-bound to do it because he's put it in and it's caused all the issues. But it's a completely different skill set, a subspeciality that needs a specialist clinic, one or two doctors that's consistently all they're doing. Our doctors are involved in multiple other disciplines within urogynecology, and it's just not possible. We're too small a country to gain that level of expertise with good outcomes. And they're quite right to say they couldn't do it, or that they say that it's not recommended. It's not recommended because the skill set isn't available to them. And it's not a reflection on the doctors. There's huge constraints on our medical field.